Hi, everybody, and welcome into the SunDevilSource Postgame Show. I'm Ethan Tuttle, joined alongside Chris Cartman. We're here at Rice-Eccles Stadium in Utah, following Arizona State's 55-3 loss to the Utah Utes. The number 18 team in the country took care of business here today, Chris. It was ASU's worst loss since joining the Pac-12. They also got gashed. They also had the lowest amount of offensive yards since 1946. Let's go ahead and jump right into the analysis and get your initial takeaways.
Yeah, I know you don't remember 1946, and neither do I, fortunately, Ethan, but that was the worst offensive performance that we've seen from an ASU team in decades, probably in history. We went back and we looked at it. ASU lost 50-0 to USC in 1988, and then lost in a game by 49 points, at which it allowed Nebraska to score 70-something points, 77 maybe, in 1995. And Utah scored that last touchdown there with under 10 seconds, whatever it was, on the clock, which made it the worst loss for ASU since joining the conference, 1978. And there's 83 total yards of offense by ASU, which the worst since a loss to Arizona in 1946. We were looking at it, the five worst performances in ASU history. The fifth worst was a 120-yard loss that ASU had to Wyoming. That was like in the 1960s or something like that. ASU had given up. ASU won a game against UCLA in 2008, in which it had only 122 yards of offense, but scored 4 defensive touchdowns, tying an NCAA record. The last time that ASU had a performance that was really, really bad on offense was probably here in 2019, when Jane Daniels had something like 25 passing yards and ASU had 136 overall yards. So what happened today, essentially, of course, was ASU very depleted with their offensive line. 7 or 8 of their top 10 guys did not play. They didn't have Isai Glass at left tackle, which we found out about didn't travel yesterday. Utah has Jonah Ellis, one of the best pass rushers in the country. The very first third down of the game, he beat Joey Ramos around the right edge, hit Bourguet, knocked him out of the game. Bourguet tried to come back one series, lasted a few plays. He was on crutches with his leg in a walking boot by the end. And Jacob Conover, 4-string quarterback, he's not ready to play effectively at this level whatsoever, and completed only 20% of his passes. ASU didn't run the ball well whatsoever, which if you can't run it and you don't have a quarterback who can throw it, you can't protect, you really have no chance. And that's why this was maybe the worst offensive performance that we've seen from ASU, in history.
Flashing back to earlier in the week, Coach Dillingham throughout practice pressers was saying, Utah's the standard. And even before that, he's really been saying it all season, Chris. So how did that kind of play out here today? And what did Dillingham have to say about that when he was asked about that in the post-game press conference?
So Utah's not the team that you want to play against when you're very limited in what you can do. And what we've seen is ASU got into these condensed formations in recent weeks, cut splits, and they're running these speed sweeps and jet actions. The problem is Utah knows that that's going to be common when they're getting to those alignments, and they're sending field pressure with 2 guys, and they're zoning it, and they're basically defeating the plays before they even can set up with the blocking. And that's why ASU had a whole bunch of negative yardage plays, almost as many negative yardage plays, it seemed like, as positive yardage plays. Can't really drop back to throw the football when you can't protect, and then you don't have a quarterback situation that's functional. So again, this is as bad as it gets. It's against an opponent that understands how to exploit the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of the teams that they play against, and they did exactly that to about a high degree as possible against the Sun Devils.
Bryson Barnes had 4 touchdowns for the Utes at the quarterback spot, and they also had over 300 rushing yards. 4 ball carriers had over 50 yards on the ground. Chris, what did you make of the defensive performance and just how they really got gashed on the ground in this one?
Yeah, that was terrible. that was actually the most surprising thing of the day for me, because ASU's been very good against the run overall on the season. And even though Utah's got a pretty potent rushing attack, only 2 times previously this year had Utah rush for more than 200 yards. And this was actually Utah's best rushing performance of the season. Utah only twice before had scored 30-plus points, had 50-plus points. A lot of that, of course, was offensive ineptitude of ASU, but just getting gashed so bad, I felt like they were able to control the interior, with move the bodies pretty much where they wanted. We saw linebackers get cut off very consistently. Trey Brown, Tate Romney, Caleb McCullough, they just could never get to the ball. And that's why Shamari Simmons, ASU's free safety, had like 9 tackles by the end of the first half. I don't know. What you can do differently is hard, because what Utah early on set up was a lot of play actions that got the ball to their receivers on the outside, on the perimeter. So now you're worried about that. You have guys that are sort of breaking down with their assignments, that gave up some completions on that early first touchdown drive, and that set up the subsequent things where Barnes is able to run for 3 explosives. He had 2 17-yard carries in the first half. They got a really good running back, and they just got it kind of rolling on all cylinders, kind of downhill, and the game really got away from ASU.
Chris, week after week, it seems like we keep coming back to this injury discussion.
Yeah.
A couple more Sun Devils went down today. Of course, you mentioned Trenton Bourguet earlier, as well as Michael Matus out in street clothes in a boot as well. So what'd you kind of observe from that, and what's the update there?
It started even before the game did. Isaiah Glass didn't travel with the team, apparently got hurt or something in a walkthrough. Not really sure too many of the details, but so that's the left tackle. ASU already had Emmett Boley and among its top 4, Bram Walden, Maxi Hanachor, all out from this game at offensive tackle. So they bump out Sean Naav, true freshman, from guard to tackle. First started tackle in his career. Tough environment for that to happen. Joey Ramos, not really a tackle. He's out there. And then you got and Ramos is playing through an injury. Cade Briggs is playing with a meniscus issue in one of his knees. So not just do you have 7 offensive linemen not playing, but then other guys among your best offensive linemen are playing through injuries. And that, on top of that, Carlos Brooks has a hamstring tear. He didn't travel. He had come back, looked fresh for a couple weeks, then he's out, right? Michael Matus on a special teams play goes down with a knee injury that we've heard is season ending. And Trenton Bourguet left the game on crutches with his, I think it was his left foot in a walking boot, one of his feet in a walking boot.
Yeah, I think I had it mixed around. It was Trenton Bourguet who was in the boot, I believe.
Yes, right. And Michael Matus has a knee. So it just keeps mounting for ASU. Mason Williams also didn't travel. He's their number 2 nickel. The most injuries that I've ever seen with an offensive team that I've covered at ASU in 20 years. And a lot of people say you got to go back much further than that to find a team that's had this many injuries. So that makes it really hard, and that's a big factor in why they're so limited offensively right now.
So a 52-point loss, what positives can Coach Dillingham and the rest of the staff, maybe fans as well, kind of take from this game? We saw Melquan Stovall with a big punt return. That seemed to get the crowd kind of alive, but like you said, it was wiped away. So
yeah.
What positives can you take from this game?
Elijah Badger also had the big kickoff return for whatever it was, 78 yards or 77, something like that. The main thing I would say is the experience that younger players are getting for the future. Caleb Black is out there again. Didn't really do anything, but he's getting meaningful reps. Sean Na'a, talked about him earlier. He's playing left tackle now. That's going to help for the future. And then some younger guys defensively. CJ Fight, I would say most prominently. He's started as a 3 technique tackle. They didn't have a good game against the run. But these are the types of performances I think that allow you to see what it looks like at the highest level and understand that that's the North Star. That's what you're trying to align towards so that you can have some success. So a lot of the guys that are on this team are the culture setters for the future. And this is a terrible taste in their mouths, but something that they're going to have to try to, swallow and deal with, to use this as a pill for their future success in the coming years.
Yeah, they've got some tough games on the way still just to finish out this season. They've got UCLA on the road next, then it's back at home for Oregon and U of A, so 3 tough ones here left on the schedule. That's going to do it for this edition of the SunDevilSource Postgame Show, though. 55-3, the final here from Rice-Eccles. He's Chris Cartman. I'm Ethan Tuttle saying thank you so much. We'll see you next time.